بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. So the title of the topic is Who's Allah and why do we need to know Him? And certainly the beginning, the first half of the title, which is Who's Allah, I am much smaller than describing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to you. And I will basically refer you to Allah's description of Himself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described Himself throughout His book, and His messengers have described them, including the last and the greatest of the messengers, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You have a beautiful description here, hung on the wall in the back. That's Ayat al-Kursi of Surah Al-Baqarah. And I invite you to read it, and I invite you to study it, and I invite you to repeat it often, and to reflect on each and every attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse. This is the greatest verse of the Quran. And why is it the greatest verse of the Quran? Because it's all about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is all about Allah. And it is all about Allah's names and attributes. Then there are two different locutions, or there are two different places in the Quran where Allah described Himself. One time Allah described Himself directly, and one time Allah described Himself on the tongue of one of His mighty and greatest messengers. That is Sayyiduna Ibrahim alayhi wa ala nabiyyina salatu wassalam. At the end of Surah Al Haj, and I will say this first because I will focus more on the description of Allah by Ibrahim alayhi salam, not because it is greater than the description at the end of Surah Al Haj, but because it talks about Allah from our perspective as His creation. At the end of Surah Al Haj, Allah describes His names and attributes. Allah says, هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. والله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس المؤمن السلام هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو السلام المؤمن المهيمن
العزيز الجبار المتكبر.
هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور وله الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة. It is Allah besides whom there is no God. عالم الغيب والشهادة, the knower of the unseen and the seen. هو الرحمن الرحيم, He is the beneficent, the merciful. والله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون. والله الذي لا إله إلا هو. It is Allah besides whom there is no God. The sovereign, Al-Malik, the sovereign, Al-Quddus, the holy, the giver of peace, As-Salam, the keeper of faith, Al-Mu'min, the preserver of security and the guardian, Al-Muhaymin, the mighty, Al-Aziz, the compeller, Al-Jabbar, the supreme, Al-Mutakabbir. Subhanallah amma yushrikun, glory be to Allah above what they set up as partners with Him. Glory be to Allah above what they set up as partners with Him. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور. It is He who is the creator. He is Allah al-Khaliq, the creator, al-Bari, the originator, al-Musawwir, the fashioner. له الأسماء الحسنى, to Him belongs the beautiful names. To Him belong all the beautiful names. يُسَبِّحُ لَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Everything in the heavens and everything on earth glorify Him. Whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on earth glorify Him. وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ, and He is the mighty and the wise. So these last three verses of Surah Al-Hajj, they also warrant our attention and warrant our reflection and warrant our chanting of these verses with ourselves. Like, oftentimes we waste so much time, stuck in traffic here in New Jersey. We waste so much time waiting in line. And if you're just waiting in line, or you're stuck in traffic, and you chant those verses, if you memorize them, and you chant those verses, that is basically connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is about more recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and undoubtedly, al-ma'rifah tu'addi ila al-hubb. Undoubtedly, more recognition of Allah will result in more love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the more you recognize Allah, the supreme, the possessor of the most beautiful names and attributes, the most merciful, the most beneficent, al-wadud, the compassionate, al-shakur, the grateful, the loving, the more you recognize Allah, undoubtedly you'll love Him more. So it is a virtuous cycle versus the vicious cycle. There are two different closed cycles. They're both closed, but one is vicious and one is virtuous. And here we're talking about a virtuous cycle of recognition and love. And more recognition leading to more love, and more love inviting you to get to know Him better so that you can love Him more, and so on and so forth. So those who are in love with Allah, they learn more about Allah so that they can be in more love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they can basically immerse themselves in that virtuous cycle of ma'rifah wa hubb, recognition and love. But the verses that I wanted to talk about today in particular are those verses in Surah Al-Shu'ara where Ibrahim alayhi salam said to his people, قَالَ أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْبُدُونَ أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمُ الْأَقْدَمُونَ فَإِنَّهُمْ عَدُوٌّ لِّي إِلَّا رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِ وَالَّذِي هُوَ يُطْعِمُني وَيَسْقِينِ وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينِ وَالَّذِي يُمِيتُنِي ثُمَّ يُحْيِينِ وَالَّذِي أَطْمَعُ أَن يَغْفِرَ لِي خَطِيئَتِي يَوْمَ الدِّينِ. And I will just focus on these verses. قَالَ أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْبُدُونَ. This is Ibrahim talking to his people. He's introducing his God to his people. And certainly, someone of my size will benefit a great deal from Ibrahim's introduction of God to his people. Ibrahim is the second greatest after the Prophet ﷺ, the second greatest of Allah's creation, the second greatest of the mankind after the Prophet ﷺ. So Ibrahim said to them, قَالَ أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْبُدُونَ. He said, have you seen those that you used to worship? Have you seen those deities that you have been worshipping? فَإِنَّهُمْ عَدُوٌّ لِّي إِلَّا رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ. They are all my enemies except for the Lord of the worlds. Rabb al-Alameen, except for the Lord of the worlds. And it is, sometimes we feel too shy to say the truth. And I'm not saying that you will always speak in this prophetic assertiveness, because you're not Ibrahim. Your character, your qualities are not up there so that you could speak in a prophetic voice. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to talk to the people like Ibrahim was talking to the people with the assertiveness, forcefulness, and the prophetic voice of Ibrahim, because Ibrahim already had credit with his people. He was known to be Ibrahim. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he started to preach to them after he was already known to be a Sadiq al-Amin. You're not known, I'm not known. We're actually looked down at, or we're actually perceived with a lot of suspicion and doubt, if not worse than that. So don't speak with a prophetic voice, but understand that there is an importance for assertiveness, clarity, and lack of ambiguity. فَإِنَّهُمْ عَدُوٌّ لِي. They are my enemies, except for the Lord of the worlds. So to clear myself from shirk and to basically set the record straight, I have nothing to do with all of this. There is only one deity that I worship. He's unlike any of those deities. Without that clarification, without making sure that you have complete devotion for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will not be admitted into His presence, because He does not take basically people who have preoccupation with other deities, which could be not necessarily idols. There is actually idolizing of a lot of things. There is, different types of paganism, different types of idolatry. There is the idolatry of money. Isn't that a type of idolatry? The Prophet told us that it's a type of idolatry. The Prophet said, "Ta'is abdul dinar, ta'is abdul dirham." May he not prosper, the slave of the dinar and the slave of the dirham. So Allah does not accept any form of idolatry. Allah wants pure devotion. So in order for you to be admitted into His presence, and in order for you to be accepted as one of His servants, you will need to clear your heart from any competition. Any competition. It has to be completely devoted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not easy, by the way. That is extremely difficult. One of the things that you need to clear your heart of is basically the pursuit of people's pleasure, the pursuit of people's acceptance, the pursuit of conforming, the pursuit of basically being accepted by the generality of people. That is a devastating pursuit. And that pursuit is particularly devastating to people who excel and get rid of the other forms of idolatry and purify their hearts of all other forms of shirk. So the people can, like Sufyan al-Thawri said, rahimahullah, ما رأيت الزهد أقل منه في شيء منه في الرياسة. I have not seen zuhd to be more scarce in anything than the zuhd or disinterest in leadership, because it's about acceptance. It's about people's pleasure. He said that a man could practice zuhd. إن المرأة قد يزهد في الطعام والشراب والنكاح والمال فإن نُزِعَ في الرياسة تحامى عليها وعاد فيها. That a man could show this interest in wealth, food, drink, even sexual relations. He could actually practice zuhd or show this interest in all of that. But once someone competes with him for leadership, for distinction, sibling rivalry. I want to be my parents' favorite. It is basically wanting to be, accepted, wanting to be praised, wanting to be recognized by the people as superior, as better, as this or that. So Imam Sufyan al-Thawri said that the man could give up everything. But once someone competes with him for leadership, then he becomes agitated because of that, and he fights, and he makes enemies because of that. is a different type. So I'm just saying this to say that this is, removal of idolatry from our hearts is not an easy business. Don't think that you got there. Don't think that you have sincerity. Accuse yourself always of lack of sincerity. Accuse yourself always of hypocrisy. Not the so-called النفاق العلمي or النفاق العقدي or النفاق الأكبر, not the sort of major hypocrisy, because you know that you're a believer. You know that you believe deep inside La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. But what the Sahaba used to accuse themselves of is النفاق العملي. It's the practical nifaq. It is basically to show off once. That's like a form of nifaq. To show off is a form of nifaq. To seek the pleasure of people where you should have been seeking the pleasure of Allah. To do something in private that is good, but then you can't keep it for yourself. And you're almost itching to tell somebody about it. Even your wife or your parents. You just can't keep it for yourself. Although Allah knew about it, He should have been sufficient for you. أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِكَافٍ عَبْدًا? Isn't Allah sufficient for His servant? You have done it. Allah saw it. Allah is sufficient for you. ما ضرهم ألا يعرفهم عمر إن كان رب عمر قد عرفهم وأكرمهم في الشهادة. Umar said, what would harm them to not be recognized by Umar? If the Lord of Umar had already known them, if the Lord of Umar had already recognized them. So, isn't Allah sufficient for us? He is certainly sufficient for us. So why are we itching to tell somebody about it when Allah saw it, when Allah knew of it, when Allah heard it? You've done something good, keep it, hide it for another day, for the day of your need. Hide it for the time of your need. Hide it for your first night in the grave. That will be a very sort of consequential night, because that is the beginning of the next phase of your existence. If it is good, then everything else, everything beyond it will be better. And if it is bad, then everything beyond it will be worse. Why can't we hide it? We have to practice this. So let's remove all forms of idolatry from our hearts so that we will be like Ibrahim. فَإِنَّهُمْ عَدُوٌ لِي إِلَّا رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Not only the idols, the statues, but all forms of idolatry. They are my enemies except for the Lord of the worlds. الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِ. He started to describe his Lord. He began with what? الَّذِي خَلَقَني. He who created me. فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِ. And it is He who guides me. And look at the connection that Ibrahim alayhi salam made. He who created me, and it is He who guides me. This is very important. It's a very important connection here that he made. الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِ. Did anyone make the claim of creation other than the Lord of the worlds, the Lord of Ibrahim, and the prophets before him and after him, Musa, Isa, Muhammad, and before them Noah, from Adam alayhi salam? Did anyone make that claim? No. In fact, the way you reach the doors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way you get yourself there, is through reflection and logic. And then you look around and you see that you are here. And you are the greatest sign on His existence and His magnificence and His greatness. You're here. Pinch yourself. You're here or not, you're here. You're present. Some philosophers have issues with perception. But at least you cannot doubt your existence. Even the solipsists would not doubt their existence. That's a certain type of philosophy, an offshoot from the Cartesian philosophy of doubt. Because if you doubt, then you exist. So you cannot doubt your existence. You exist. At least you know that you exist. At least that you personally exist. And if you exist, you are the greatest sign of his existence. Yourself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Tur tells us, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ. Allah brings this up in Surah Tur about your own existence. Allah uses to prove his existence through your existence. Although his existence is not in need of your existence to be proven. But in order for us to comprehend, and to basically reason and to reflect, Allah invites us to this discourse. He says, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Have they been created by nothing? أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Or are they the creators of themselves? أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. Or did they create the heavens and the earth? Nay, they have no certainty. أَمْ عِنْدَهُمْ خَزَائِنُ رَبِّكَ أَمْ هُمُ الْمُسَيْطِرُونَ. Or did they have the depositories of your Lord? Or are they in control? أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Have they created themselves? Have they been created by nothing? Impossible. Right? Someone must have brought you to existence. Because you could have not assembled yourself in your time of Adam, nothingness, before you came to existence. How could a non-existent being bring himself to existence when he was non-existent? أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ. Have they been created by nothing? أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Or did they create themselves? That's even harder. You have not been created you have been created by nothing is extremely hard. It is harder to have created yourself because you were not existent. أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. That is called escalation of argument. That is ascendancy of argument. Because it gets from hard to harder to hardest. أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. You came here and found them. They existed before you. Then it would have been even harder that you have created those who have existed before you. Those creatures that have existed before you. أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. Nay, they have no certainty. And then there is a beautiful iltifat here to another argument, or a beautiful turn into another argument that is completely different, which is, أَمْ عِنْدَهُمْ خَزَائِنُ رَبِّكَ. Or do they have the depositories of your Lord? أَمْ هُمُ الْمُسَيْطِرُونَ. Or are they in control? Are they in control? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is leaving the argument of the creation now and entertaining a different argument. Are you in control of the wind and the rain? Are you in control of the rivers and the oceans? Are you in control of the trees and the plants? Are you in control of your heartbeats? Are you in control of your heartbeats? Are you in control of the movements of your intestines? Do you know that your intestines are moving now all the time inside you? Are you controlling this? Are you even aware of it? You're not aware of it. You're not even in control of your body. You're not even in control of your interior. You're not even in control of the blood that is moving all the time through your body. You're not in control of any of this. So someone must be in control. Someone must be in control. And the very concept of arrhythmicity of that control is so beautiful, so telling of the presence of a supreme being that is in control, and that cannot be a consequence of nature, because nature must be rhythmic. An unwillful agent should be rhythmic, right? In his, how do causes lead to their effects? Either it is natural, by natural flow, or willful action, right? That's how causes lead to their effects. but those effects are unpredictable and completely arrhythmic, meaning there is no rhythm. I mean by this what? April 24th, 2016 will not be like April 24th, 2015, right? If this is a product of a natural coincidence, if all of our existence is a product of a natural coincidence, April 24th of 2016 to 2016 should be like April 24th, 2015, right or wrong. Causes lead to their effects through natural flow. The natural flow has to be rhythmic flow. But the fact that it is not, and it is not predictable, and no one can predict it. No one, the best meteorologists in this whole world, to say that we can be 100% certain of what happens, they will not tell you that we can be 100% certain of what will happen tomorrow, let alone what will happen next week. That very arrhythmicity is a sign that the one in control is a willful agent, is a willful being. So magnificent and willful, that's the definition of a God. Magnificent, all omnipotent, all capable, and willful. So Ibrahim alayhi salam said, "Alladhi khalaqani," and then we said that no one ever claimed that he created this universe except the God of Ibrahim and the God of Musa. Look at all of the religions. Divide the religions, after you basically reason in this way, and you identify that there is a need, there is a necessity. There is a necessity for the existence of a creator for this universe. There is a rational necessity, a logical necessity. After you have identified this, survey the whole world. All of the religions in this world can be divided into three groups. There's a paganistic group of religions, and then Eastern philosophies, Taoism, Hinduism, Eastern philosophies, Buddhism. And then there are the religions that have originally come from the divine, from God, that are based on the messengership model, or the model of messengership. Keep in mind, Buddha did not say, "I'm a messenger from God." Buddha was a philosopher. He may have made great contributions to human thought and human philosophy. But Buddha did not say, "I am a messenger of God. I came with a message from God to deliver to you." That was Musa, Isa, and Muhammad alayhi salam. So, since God created this universe, He should yahdeen. He created us. And He is a purposeful being. And He must have created us for a purpose, then He must guide us to that purpose. Ibrahim is telling them, فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِ. And it is He who guides me, because it is He who created me. And my Creator is a purposeful Creator. And I am a purposeful being. If I do anything purposelessly, you will call me crazy, insane. So I'm a purposeful being, and my God is a purposeful God. Then He must have communicated the purpose of my existence to me. He must have sent me some guidance, which I must look for, which I must find, and which I must follow. Not only that, Ibrahim is pointing out to them that you should be on the lookout for the guidance that has come to you, or that is coming to you, or that should come to you from your Lord who created you. That is الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِ. He said to them, since we were created, then we must be on the lookout for guidance from our Creator. But He was not only pointing this out, but He was pointing out something else, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points out in many parts in the Quran. أَلَا لَهُ الْخَلْقُ وَالْأَمْرُ تَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ. سورة تبارك ألا يعلم من خلق. سورة الأعراف الله الخلق والأمر تبارك الله رب العالمين. So ألا يعلم من خلق وهو اللطيف الخبير. Doesn't he know what he created when he is the all-subtle and all-knowing? Meaning, if you want to look for guidance, who would guide you better than the one who made you? When I was a young child, I heard this khutbah from like a very outspoken sheikh that was very effective in his deliverance and effective in basically convincing people of all ages. And he said he was saying that if you buy a General Electric fridge and it breaks, who would be best capable of fixing it? Yeah, the General Electric agency or whatever dealership. They would be best at fixing the General Electric fridge. Who would be best capable of telling you how to use it? The functions, the features, the options in that fridge or in your Nissan. No one who made it, absolutely. So as a human being, someone made you. You should be seeking his guidance in figuring out how you should basically conduct your life, how you should live your life. You should be seeking his guidance. You should be on the lookout for his guidance, and you should then conform, comply, and it is only natural for the human to comply with the divine. الذي خلقني فهو يهدين والذي هو يطعمني ويسقين, and it is he who feeds me and it is he who gives me to drink, and it is he who feeds me and it is he who gives me to drink. Do you think that you're feeding yourself? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, فرأيتم ما تحرثون أأنتم تزرعونه أم نحن الزارعون لو نشاء جعلناه حطاما فظلتم تفكهون إنا لمغرمون بل نحن محرومون. أفرأيتم الماء الذي تشربون إلى آخر الآيات. But أفرأيتم ما تحرثون, have you seen the seeds that you sow? أأنتم تزرعونه أم نحن الزارعون? Are you the ones who make it grow, or are we the ones who make it grow? But Allah did not say this. Usually you find this, the translation say, are you the ones who make it grow, or are we the ones who make it grow? But Allah did not say this. Allah said, are you the planters or we the planters? So Allah is effectively telling us that although you call yourself Zara or a planter, you're actually not. Your work is so minimal that it is nothing. What is your work? You sow the seed in the ground. That's it. That's your work. Compare this work to the rest of the work that needs to be done for this seed to become a tree. And then, by comparison, your work would be reduced into zero. Therefore, you're not a zara. أأنتم تزرعونه أم نحن الزارعون? Are you the ones who planted? Are you the ones who make it grow? Are you the planters, or are we the planters? And it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the planter. Your work is so trivial that mathematically it will be reduced to zero when you compare it to the work of Allah from the time the seed has been sown in the ground until it has become a tree or a plant. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then Ibrahim alayhi salam said, وَإِذَا مَرِضْتُ فَهُوَ يَشْفِينِ, and it is He who cures me, or it is He when I fall ill, He cures me. There are a few verses of poetry reflecting on this meaning. that no matter how advanced we become in medicine, the very doctor that is treating you could die before you. قل للطبيب تخطفته يد الردى يا شافي الأمراض من أرضاك. Say to the physician or say to the healer who has been snatched by the hand of death, يا شافي الأمراض, O healer of diseases, من أرضاك. Or يا طبيب من بطبه أرضاك. The different variations. يا شافي الأمراض من أرضاك, O healer of diseases, who caused you to die? Who killed you? If you are the healer of diseases, because you're really not the healer. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ one day was approached by a man who said to him, there is no one who knows more about medicine than I do, so let me take care of the abscess in your back. And the Prophet ﷺ said to him, Allahu tabib. Allah is the tabib. Allah is the healer. قل للمريض نجا وعوفي بعدما عجزت فنون الطب من عافاك. So say to the sick or the ill person who survived after all medications failed, all treatments failed. Who made you survive? Who cured you? قل للصحيح يموت لا من علة من بالمنايا يا صحيح دهاك. Say to the healthy one who dies without any disease, who killed you? Who caused you to die without any disease? So that is what Ibrahim tries to emphasize here. It is he who brings disease, and it is he who heals. And then he says, وَالَّذِي يُمِيتُنِي ثُمَّ يُحْيِينِ, and it is he who causes me to die and brings me back to life. وَالَّذِي أَطْمَعُ أَن يَغْفِرَ لِي خَطِيئَتِي يَوْمَ الدِّينِ, and it is he who I aspire that he will forgive my sin on the day of judgment. So that is Ibrahim's introduction of his Lord to the people. It is he who created us. And it is we that we should be looking for guidance from concerning our life. You should be looking for the answers to the most pressing questions that you should look for answers to. What are those questions? The most pressing questions, basically the most essential questions to be answered by a human being, philosophically. What are they? Where did I come from? What am I here for? And where am I going? Those are the existential questions that human beings ask themselves all the time. Who should tell you about the answers to those questions? Other than the one who created you, other than the one who made you. So why do we need to know him? Because basically, you will never come to terms with your own existence. You will never have comfort. You will never have inner peace. You will never have contentment. You will never have stability without knowing him. Can you imagine being on a bus, enjoying a bus ride if you don't know your final destination? You're on a bus ride with many people, and everybody's laughing, and everybody is, clapping, and everybody's having a good time. Can you imagine just engaging in laughter and clapping and partying with everybody on the bus when you don't know the final destination of this bus? You cannot. You could pretend to be happy. You could basically get yourself drunk on partying while you're en route. But deep inside, there will be some discomfort. Deep inside you, you can never come to this basically station of wholeness, holism, togetherness of your entire being, all of your dimensions, the physical, the spiritual, the intellectual, we will not come together in peace as long as you are not certain of the final destination. And no matter how much you celebrate the company of your friends or enjoy the party en route, you will always have a nagging feeling, distressing you all the time. Where is this bus going? Where is the final destination? Where are we heading to? That is why you do need to recognize your Lord and to connect with your Lord. Kenny, someone who does not know his Father, would he not be interested in knowing his Father? If someone doesn't know his Father, doesn't he live his life with this curiosity, keenness, eagerness to know who his Father was? They do. They do. But if you don't know who your Lord is, that is even much worse than not knowing who your Father is. You need to know Allah. You need to know Allah because basically, spiritually, you know the umbilical cord is your source of nurture when you're in your fetal life. If you cut off your umbilical cord in your fetal life, you're done. Fetal demise will be a matter of certainty if you cut off the umbilical cord. Spiritually, your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your spiritual umbilical cord. You will suffer from a rapid spiritual demise if you distance yourself from your Lord who created you. He is your source of comfort, your source of tranquility, your source of solace. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And without Him, you will never be able to make it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Nahl, مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا مِنْ ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَىٰ وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ فَلَنَحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. He who does righteousness, whether male or female, while in a state of belief, we shall give them a good life. فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ, and we shall reward them according to their best deeds. بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ, according to their best deeds. On the opposite side, Allah says in Surah Taha, Allah says what? وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنكًا وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى قال رب لم حشرتني أعمى وقد كنت بصيرا قال كذلك أتتك آياتنا فنسيتها وكذلك اليوم تنسى. And he who stays away from my remembrance, he will have a life of distress. ومن أعرض عن ذكري فإن له معيشة ضنكا. He will have a life of distress. ونحشره يوم القيامة أعمى, and we shall resurrect him on the day of judgment blind. Keep in mind, no matter how much you try to escape from it, no matter how much you try to engage in all forms of recreation, in all forms of, joyful functions and activities and so on and so forth, it will be a life of distress. Why? Because of many reasons. Because you are on a bus ride not knowing your final destination. Because the approaching of death itself causes you distress. Because death is coming closer. And if you don't know what you're going to have afterwards, that causes you distress. Even the least, at least you will be distressed about leaving all this behind. And the more you will have of this life, the more you will be distressed about leaving it behind. People who really have, are on top of, the pyramid, or the strata of the society, occupy the topmost strata of the society. They are the people who are most distressed about leaving this behind. And then when you hit 40 years of age and you start to feel different about yourself, different about your body, and you hit 50 and you're even feeling weaker, and the things are given, in on you. Your knees are not the same like they were before, and your hips and this and that. And with every year, you will feel some deterioration. It is a life of distress. And it is a life of distress because no matter how much you have, you would be always comparing yourself to somebody else. Because Allah put that distress between your eyes. We will give them a life of distress. And we will resurrect them blind on the day of judgment and the hereafter. Allah puts this distress between your eyes. Keep in mind, if you're the Queen of England, you will be looking at someone else who has something that you don't have. Yeah, you will be looking at a lot of people who have things that you don't have. It's not all about wealth. It's not all about power. It's not all about status. There is wealth. There is health. There is beauty. There is handsomeness for men. There is basically celebrity. There is influence. There are so many things. So people who have, who get to the top of one of them, they will be looking for the others. So you could be the wealthiest, but you're not necessarily the most healthy or healthiest of all people. So you will be always comparing yourselves to others who have something that you don't have. That is a form of distress that you will never be able to shake off unless you seek your comfort, your solace, your togetherness, your wholeness, your holiness from the source of holism, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who will put you back together. Your spirit, your intellect, and your physique. You will be put back together when you connect with Him, because He is the one who put them all together the first time. You will never be able to redo what He did. It's unrepeatable. He can only do it. He can only put all of your dimensions back together, all of your components back together. قولوا قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم.